Once Upon a Tale.
Greetings! Welcome to the first episode of Once Upon a Tale, a podcast where you can discover some amazing Vietnamese folk stories and myths. In today's episode, we'll uncover one of Vietnam's most famous folk stories, the story of Tấm Cám. Some might even say this is the Vietnamese version of Cinderella. Long ago, there was a man whose wife passed away, leaving behind a small little girl named Tấm. After a while, he remarried, however, to a wicked woman who detested Tấm. On the wedding day, Tấm was even locked into a room by herself and denied supper. Conditions grew worse for Tấm when her new stepmother had a baby named Cám. The stepmother continued to tell lies about Tấm to her husband. The wretched woman sent Tấm to a dirty corner of the kitchen where she was forced to live and work. Tấm had to scrub the floors, chop the wood, feed the animals, and do all the cooking. Her stepmother sent her far out into the forest in hopes that she may not return. Tấm suffered hard labor and got blisters on her hands and dirt on her face. However, when she washed off the dirt, her ivory skin showed how beautiful she was. When her stepmother realized how pretty Tấm could be, her hate and wish to do harm towards her grew. One day, she sent Tấm and her own daughter Cám to go fishing in the village pond. "If you don't bring back a lot of fish, you will be beaten," she told the girls. However, both knew that the warning was directed towards Tấm. While Tấm worked hard and got a basket full of fish, Cám spent all her time idly, basking in the warm sunshine and picking wild flowers. When they were about to go home, Cám looked at her empty basket and said to Tấm, Sister, your hair is full of mud. Why don't you step into the fresh water and get a good wash to get rid of it? Otherwise, Mother is going to scold you." Innocently, Tấm listened, and while she washed her hair, Cám stole her fish and hurried home. When Tấm realized what had happened, she wept. Surely she would be punished for coming home empty-handed. Suddenly, a gentle wind passed, and in the clear blue sky appeared the goddess of mercy. In a sweet voice, the goddess asked Tấm what had happened. Tấm told her misfortune and added, "Most noble lady, what am I to do tonight when I go home? I am frightened to death, for my stepmother will not believe me, and she will beat me so hard." The goddess of mercy consoled her. "Your misfortune will be over soon. Have confidence in me and cheer up. Now, look at your basket to see whether there is anything left." Tấm looked and saw a small lovely fish with red fins and golden eyes. The goddess said, "Take this fish home and feed it 3 times a day." Then she vanished without any other explanation. So Tấm went home and followed the words of the goddess and fed the fish 3 times a day. Tấm stepmother took notice of her behavior and tried to summon the fish as well. However, the fish would only surface when Tấm was present. Not giving up, one day, when Tấm was gone, her stepmother put on her clothing and summoned the fish. She then killed it and cooked it. When Tấm discovered that her fish was gone, she wept. The goddess of mercy appeared again and comforted her. "Do not cry, my child. Your stepmother has killed the fish, but you must try to find its bones and bury them in the ground under your mat. Whatever you may wish to possess, pray to them, and your wish will be granted." Tấm followed the advice and looked, but she could not find the fish's bone, until a hen helped her and find them in return for some rice. She buried them according to the goddess' instructions and received gold and jewelry and dresses that were more beautiful than she could imagine. Then came the autumn festival. It was said that this was also the festival for the country's king to find his bride. Knowing how beautiful Tấm was, her stepmother ordered her to stay home and sort out 2 big baskets of mixed black and green beads. Only after she finished sorting it would she be allowed to go to the festival. Looking at the basket, Tấm knew she would never be able to finish her task on time. With tears in her eyes, she sought the help of the goddess of mercy one more time. At once, the kind goddess appeared, and with her magic green willow branch, turned little flies into sparrows that sorted the beans out for the girl. Tấm dried her tears and put on a glittering blue and silver dress that made her look like a princess going to the festival. Cam and her mother could not recognize Tấm. When Tấm realized that her stepmother and half-sister were staring at her, she ran away, but in such a hurry that she dropped one of her fine slippers. The slippers caught the king's attention. He took it and declared he had never seen such a work of art before. He sent words that any woman who could fit the slipper would become his queen. However, day after day, no one could fit the slipper, including Cam. When the king and his servants reached Tấm house, Tấm tried on the slipper and it fit her perfectly. She was taken to the court with escorts and became the queen. She was overjoyed with her new life. On her father's birthday, Tấm went home to celebrate it with her family. At the time, it was customary that no matter how great or important one might be, one was always expected by one's parents to behave exactly like a young and obedient child. Taking advantage of this, Tấm stepmother asked her to climb a tree and pick some fruits for everyone to enjoy. Tấm dutifully agreed. But while she was in the tree, the stepmother cut it down and sent her to her death. Due to Tấm sudden death, Cam then became the king's wife as a substitute for her sister. Tấm pure and an innocent soul could not find peace. It was turned into a shape of a nightingale, which dwelt in the most beautiful grove in the king's garden and sang beautiful songs. The king realized that this bird was the spirit of his beloved late wife, and he kept it in a cage. He spent all his free time next to it, listening to its melodious songs. Cam became jealous of the bird, and with her mother's advice, she killed it. The king returned and discovered the absence of the nightingale. He was very sad, convinced by Cam that it had flown away on its own. But again, Tấm restless soul was transformed into a big, magnificent tree, which only bore a single, big, golden, sweet-smelling persimmon. An old woman passed by the tree and called upon the golden fruit. Golden fruit, drop into the bag of this old woman. I will only enjoy your smell, never eat you. The fruit dropped into the old woman's bag. She brought it home, put it on the table to enjoy its sweet scented aroma. But the next day, she was surprised to find that her house was clean and tidy, and on the table was a hot meal waiting for her after she got back from her errands. The next morning, she pretended to leave, but stealthily came back, hid herself behind the door, and observed the house. A fair and slender lady emerged from the fruit and started to clean the house. The old woman rushed in and tore up the fruit. The young lady stayed and became her adoptive daughter. One day, the king and his hunting party lost their way. It soon became dark and he sought shelter at the old woman's house. She was happy to help. She offered him tea and betel, and when he examined the delicate way in which the betel was prepared, he asked, "Who is the person who made this betel, which looks exactly like the one prepared by my late beloved queen?" The old woman answered in a trembling voice, "Son of heaven, it is only my unworthy daughter." The king then ordered the daughter to be brought to him. When he saw her, he realized that she was his beloved wife. The queen was taken back to the imperial city, where she took her former rank, replacing Cam. Cam, hoping that being as beautiful as her sister would help her win the king's heart, asked her sister, "Dearest sister, how could I become as white as you?" "It is very easy," answered the queen. "You only have to jump into a big basin of boiling water to do that." Cam believed her and followed the advice. She died, and her mother heard about the incident. She wept and wept until she became blind. Soon thereafter, she died of a broken heart. The queen lived a long life and lived happily ever after. Dear listeners, this is the end of today's episode. Make sure to follow us on Spotify if you want to tune in to more stories from Once Upon a Tale. For now, goodbye and see you again.